Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and we're going to try something a little different here. This is kind of how I would have booked, but in a different way. I had seen the other day someone posted about a fantasy booked wrestling card that we would have wanted to see. And it made me think of the wrestling magazines I used to get in the 80s and the 90s, and you would always see these hypothetical wars between WWF and, at this time, Jim Crockett Promotions, aka the NWA. So what we're going to do, this is going to be a WWF versus NWA, specifically Jim Crockett, dream card for me, the card I would have put together, and we're going to roughly base it on their 1987 rosters, where I think both companies were at a very hot peak, and maybe a little bit loose with who was the world champions there, or who was a heel or face, because we're talking about almost 40 years ago now, and some of the timing's a little off, so forgive me if some of that's a bit off here, but this is a card I would have put together, the dream card, WWF versus the NWA in the 80s. We're going to start off with a first match to get everybody excited. I love Battle Royals. We're putting a Battle Royal on here. First thing it is to get plenty of wrestlers that normally wouldn't be on this card and get them a mega payday, because this would be a mega show. But also, I just like them. So for that, we're going to do 10 people from each company. From Jim Crockett, we have Jim Garvin, Ronnie Garvin, Ole Anderson, Wahoo McDaniel, The Warlord, Sting, Jimmy Valiant, Ivan Koloff, and Lex Luger. And you may be surprised that Sting is on here, but do remember this was very early in Sting's career. He wasn't quite main event Sting yet. And also, you do want to have some bigger name value here. For the WWF side, we have Andre the Giant, the model Rick Martel, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, Big John Studd, the Junkyard Dog, Jake the Snake Roberts, Billy Jack Hayes, Butch Reed, Brian Blair, and Jim Brunzell. And for this, obviously, we're going to give a fan favorite a win here. Andre is going to pick up the win because I don't think either company would argue with that. I would give Andre the win on this first match. Then we're going to win to our second match of the show, a match that everybody wanted to see at the time. We did eventually get this, but I think when we did, one of the teams was booked a little bit poorer than they had been, and you'll get what I'm saying when I give you the match. We have Demolition, Axe, and Smash going up against the Road Warriors, Hawk, and Animal. Now, I don't think this changes and is much different than what actually played out with Hawk and Animal beating Axe and Smash. I still think that the Road Warriors pick up the win here, but I feel like it would be more serious and Demolition would be more of a threat. Unlike when the Road Warriors did come into WWF finally and Demolition was kind of pushed to the side. I still think this would be awesome. Road Warriors are going to get the win here. Next match, we have Barry Windham going up against the magnificent Don Morocco. This is a match if you're somewhat middle card guys. A good matchup to put on a good match on the card. I'm going to have this one end in a double countout because it's the 80s, and go watch a pay-per-view from the 80s. You'll see a bunch of double countouts. You'll see a bunch of double disqualifications. I think this makes them both look strong. It makes Windham look strong fighting against a guy that was a mainstay in the WWF. It makes Morocco look strong because he's fighting evenly with one of the young up-and-coming stars. It's a good double countout in that way. That's why I booked it as such. Next up, we have Ricky the Dragon Steamboat going up against Nikita Koloff. And for this one, I'm giving Ricky the Dragon Steamboat the win here. And I'm trying to put myself in the weight of the bookers that would be working together here. Would either side be against the Steamboat? We all know that he had reverence with both companies, that he was well loved. I don't think Nikita would have a problem giving him the win, hence why Steamboat does get the win here. Next up, we have another mid-card type match. We have Tito Santana going up against Arn Anderson. I'm giving Tito the win here, but I'm giving it to him by disqualification because Tully Blanchard gets involved. Arn and Tully beat him up afterwards, thus giving that little bit of them getting their heat back, showing what the Horsemen are. Again, I don't think either side disagrees with that. Next up, we have Macho Man Randy Savage going up against Magnum TA. And again, like I said, this may be a little bit loose with the time frame because Magnum may have already had his unfortunate car accident. But let's say this is before that. Savage is still a heel, Magnum's the face. I'm putting Savage over here because Savage cheats, hits him with a ring bell, something that we've seen him do. Kind of the opposite of what we've seen in the match before. So we get a NWA guy cheating, now we get a WWE guy or WWF guy cheating. Makes sense in my head. Again, I think it's something the bookers would be okay with. Magnum gets the out because he didn't lose in a clean way. Savage does get the win here though. I'm going to keep it that way. Next, we have Dusty Rhodes going up against Roddy Piper. And this is another one, like I said with the double count out earlier, this one I'm going to give as a double disqualification because they both just won't listen to the ref and keep fighting each other when he tries to break them up. Reason being, I don't think either guy likes to lose. You have to have them both on the card. If you're going to talk about a super card in the 1980s, you have to have these two men on there. So yeah, Dusty versus Piper. Dusty and Piper go to a double disqualification. It's a bloodbath. It sets up a potential return match. And it also gives you that violent brawl that a show like this would be needing. Now, coming off a brawl, how do you counteract that and get the fans going in a different direction? We have a nice tag team, fast-paced match. We have the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky and Robert going up against the Hart Foundation, Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart. This is another one of those dream matches that everybody wishes happened. For this one, I'm giving the Hart Foundation the win. The Rock and Roll Express are a team that it didn't really matter that much that they would get one loss as long as they won other matches. It didn't hurt them to lose, and it wouldn't hurt them here to lose, especially against a team like the Hart Foundation. So I think they do put him over here, especially with what we see that comes up next. I think this is a perfect idea for them because our next match is another tag team match. We have the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid, going up against the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane. And for this one, the heels win again. The Midnights, with the help of Jim Cornette, pick up the win here. To me, this gives both heel teams coming out of this something to talk about in their individual shows. The Hart Foundation could tell the Bulldogs that they're not worthy because the Bulldogs couldn't beat the Midnight Express. Vice versa, the Midnight Express could tell the Rock and Roll Express that they're not worthy because they didn't beat the Hart Foundation. It kind of feels like synergy. It feels like you give both teams similar storylines going forward in their individual companies. That's why I think the Midnights pick up the win here. Then we get to our main event. The main event that every magazine had and would have put as a main event and eventually happened in WWE on the house shows and then in WCW, and that's Hulk Hogan versus the Nature Boy Ric Flair. This is the match that sells the card. This is the reason that everybody buys a pay-per-view. This is the reason that everybody shows out and sells out the building. There's only one way this is going to go. If you know of anything about Hulk Hogan in the 1980s, Hulk Hogan is not losing unless it's absolutely 100% something that he thinks is best for him. Ric Flair, I don't think, would be that upset losing to Hulk Hogan. I don't know that Jim Crockett Promotions would be that happy with this, but it's probably going to be a heavy shenanigans match, especially with the Horsemen being there. I do think the Hulkster picks up the win here, because I can't see any other way than him politicking himself into a win, and I can't see Vince booking Hogan to lose in any way possible. I think that Jim Crockett would be the one that would give in a bit, and I think the money would be made on the rematches or other matches going forward. So yeah, so this basically is my idea of what would be a dream card in the mid to late 80s between WWF and NWA, aka Jim Crockett Promotions. I know there were other promotions that were representing the NWA, but for the sake of simpleness, we're just going to call this WWF vs NWA. What do you think? Do you like my ideas for the matches? Do you think there's other matches that could have been on here? Let me know down here in the comments. While you're there, smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. I know you hear every YouTuber telling you that, but it really does help us out, and I would definitely appreciate it if you do it. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and you've been watching Heel Heat.